So welcome everybody. It's the SSHOC webinar that is going to take place here in this virtual room. So it's about drama in the cloud, but hopefully there will be no drama. And well, we touch the topic of the cloud, and it feels very natural that we have a virtual meeting to discuss the cloud activities. Although of course we would very much like to see the audience and to have interaction with you. More than just this virtual question and answering and some chit chat over coffee, but we'll be telling you as much as we can and giving you an idea of the work that is going on. And please be active in the chat, saying hello, and if you have any question and comments, and we'll keep an eye on the chat, and we'll be trying to be all over the place as much as we can in the virtual setup. So the title of our webinar is SSHOC'ing Drama in the Cloud. So the SSHOC is the project that we are going to give you an overview from. And we are doing this work as within CLARIN, been working in the SSHOC project. So the services are developed by CLARIN and other partners under the umbrella of SSHOC. And we talk about the details about the technology and give you an idea of what to tell to the researchers that would come to the library with the questions, so that you have a vision of what information to provide. We give some technical details, but please don't be afraid of the technical details. Those are there just to give you an idea, and there's always help and explanation and follow-up if need be. So as an example, we'll be talking about encoding for theatrical text collections, but in general, we talk about all kinds of language material. I think we can dive in now to the housekeeping notes.
Yes, hello everybody. I'll co-host this workshop today. I'm Juliana van der Lek from CLARIN. So please take note of the following housekeeping notes. The webinar is being recorded. All participants will receive a link to the recording later today. The slides will be available. Sorry,
later in the 2 weeks.
Later in the 2 weeks. The slides will also be shared with you. And then we will provide, if anybody needs a specific link from the slides, I'm going to quickly post it in the chat. And if you have any questions, please use the chat, and I'll make sure that in the break, some of the questions concerning the first part of the workshop will be addressed and answered.
Okay, and since we have started to introduce ourselves, so well, Juliana have already provided her name, and well, you can say what is your responsibilities in CLARIN and SSHOC.
Yes, so I'm the Training and Education Officer, supporting the CLARIN community with training and educational activities.
Thank you. My name is Maria Eskevich. I work as CLARIN Central Office Coordinator, and within SSHOC, I'm the task leader of task 3.3, which of course doesn't say anything to you if you're not in the project, but the task itself is about looking at how the text and mining algorithms and tools can be used for the researchers in social sciences and humanities, and how those can be afterwards used and accessed by the cloud.
And I am Francesca Frontini. I am a researcher at the Institute for Computational Linguistics in Pisa, in Italy, but I am here in my capacity of one of the directors of CLARIN. I am mostly involved in user involvement within CLARIN, and I also work on another subtask of work package 3, which is about multilingual vocabularies, but today I am more here in support of Maria's task.
Wonderful, thank you. And now, well, we have quickly introduced ourselves, and we would like to know more about you. So Juliana, you can guide us.
Yes, I've launched a small poll in the Zoom. Directly in Zoom, please, we would appreciate if you answered those 3 questions.
So that you should be able to see them all on your screens.
Yes, I see people reacting, answering the questions.
Okay, so, well, Ms. Juliana, you see how many answers we have received. So you can maybe say a bit of, give the overview of the answers that we have.
Yeah, so most of the participants are they are part of libraries. They are working in libraries and archives, university and research performing institutions. A very small number, 8%, are researchers, and about 8% they come from research infrastructures and EOS thematic clusters. Have you heard of research infrastructures in the social sciences and humanities? 81% of the participants answered yes, and a very small number no. What is your experience with TI, XML TI? 65% of the participants have experience, have no experience with TI, 19% a little bit of experience, and 15%. So we have no very experienced participants. So basically, the experience level will be improved after the workshop.
Yes, that's exactly our goal. Although, of course, we are not teaching you the TI itself. We want to give you more insights and highlight the value of this encoding. And now we all can see the results of the poll on the screens. So I think.
Okay, I will stop sharing now so that you can present the program.
Thank you very much. Okay. Okay, so to give you a bit of an overview of the structure of the tutorial that we have in mind. So we start with welcome and introduction. And first of all, Francesca will talk about CLARIN and what it offers. So what kind of tools and services there are. And here we'll have a lot of different links. And of course, if need be, we can share them in the chat, but there is no hurry because everything is clickable and available further on in the slides in 2 weeks or so. We also give you afterwards, I'll give you the overview of the SSHOC project. So what the project is about, who's involved, and what's the value of that project for the librarian community. Afterwards, we go into more deep details of the scenario of use and the motivation, why one would want to use TI, what's there for, like when we have a researcher with the SSH research questions and some limited knowledge of TI that comes to a librarian who is aware of SSHOC and CLARIN and what can happen after this interaction. Hopefully the knowledge that we give will help you to have a successful interaction about this topic. We'll give you some details about the TI, and well, afterwards, hopefully we'll have some questions from you that we can discuss. We'll have a quick coffee break, something like 5 minutes, and then we'll go through the use case. So that's one of the use cases that we work on in the SSHOC project, just to show you how those things are being used in practice. And what kind of workflows you can see happening. Afterwards, we have another round of question and answers. I mean, of course, they can be about something specific about the use case, or if you have more questions about something that was said in the previous parts. And we finish with a few wrap-up slides, giving you a number of useful references to the details of events that are happening that could be of interest to you, and which tools can be found, and so on. So now we can start, and Francesca, now it's up to you.
Thank you very much, Maria. So although this webinar is dedicated to SSHOC services, we decided to start with CLARIN because SSHOC is a cluster project which groups together several research infrastructures. And so by discovering CLARIN, you will also understand maybe better what SSHOC actually is. So this brief overview will just give you an idea of some of the services that CLARIN offers. But first of all, what is CLARIN? CLARIN stands for Common Language Resources and Technology Infrastructure. For those of you, the 85% of you that are familiar with the research infrastructures, you will understand what being an ERIC is. It is a European Research Infrastructure Consortium. So CLARIN is a legal entity. And also since 2016, it is recognized with this landmark status, that is to say, it is a well-established research infrastructure which is already able to provide services to researchers. And what are these services? It is, first of all, easy and sustainable access to scholars in the humanities and social sciences and beyond, to digital language data in written, spoken, video, or multimodal format, but also advanced tools to discover, explore, exploit, annotate, analyze, combine these resources wherever they are located. And also recently we've added this focus on also providing knowledge, training, education by means of webinars such as this and other initiatives. And from a technical point of view, this is the idea is to provide easy access to these resources to enable their discovery, and also when they are protected resources to ensure that they are accessible with a single sign-on, so no complications in this respect, but also that we want to create this ecosystem for knowledge exchange. For those of you that have heard about the EOSC, the European Open Science Cloud, CLARIN is integrated into the EOSC, and one of the ways in which it is integrating and co-constructing the EOSC is by participating to cluster projects such as SSHOC, and we will come back to that later. So I said that CLARIN is a consort, is a legal entity. It is in fact a legal entity that is sustained by the membership fees of countries that adhere to CLARIN. And right now, in this map, you can see that there's a number of countries that have joined CLARIN in Europe and even beyond. So we have South Africa as an observer, and then we have also centers that are located in countries that are not yet part of the CLARIN consortium. But first and foremost, CLARIN is a distributed infrastructure. So it is actually built out of a series of centers. Some of them are important. It is very important. They are data centers, certified data centers. That is to say, they store these resources and tools, and they guarantee that they are accessible. And we can proudly say that we cover a large number of languages and offer tools also for many of them, and that we offer resources not just in written, but in all modalities. We're not going into the details of what CLARIN, all the resources that are in CLARIN, but this slide is just to give you an idea of the breadth of the areas and disciplines also that we cover and the data that we offer. So it's not just an infrastructure that covers research in linguistics, but it covers all domains where language is a vehicle in some sense. So I've talked about the technical infrastructure. This is not to go into the details. It's a very short summarization of the way in which it works. So you have this series of distributed centers. These centers host the data and in some sense are guaranteeing also that they are findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. And because the set of metadata that we use to describe these data sets are shared and interoperable, it is possible to actually search for these resources from one single access point, which is the virtual language observatory. We will see how it works later on, so I'm not going to stop here too much. And at the same time, in some sense, it is also possible not only to find resources from one single access point, but also to activate tools to process them also from the CLARIN central infrastructure by using the switchboard, which in some sense is a parallel to the VLO because it collects information about all the tools and web services that are made available by these distributed centers. So more concretely, here, and maybe Juliana can already put the link in the chat so people can also try out for themselves. Here is a screenshot from the Virtual Language Observatory. You can see that I have actually created a query, and this is actually a query which uses one of the facets, the facet collection, and it allows me to actually get all the data from one single collection, the Deutsches Textarchiv. And you can see here, not the whole all results, but you can see that there is a series, for instance, of digitized newspapers that appear. Actually, where these data are coming from is the page of the DTA, which is, as you can see, it's a different address. Okay, so in some sense, because this archive is linked to CLARIN, you can actually search for data from them by a central access point, which doesn't even require you to know that this data exists in some sense, because there's a lot of descriptors. I could have searched simply for newspaper texts in German and they would have appeared as well. So it gives a lot of visibility to these archives. And I haven't chosen this example for nothing, because of course we are here today talking to librarians. So I assume that digitized collections of, for instance, historical documents is something that also libraries generally offers. And in fact, among the list of our many centers, we have also some libraries. And here I'm putting two examples. First of all, the National Library of Norway, which is linked to CLARIN, which is CLARIN Norway, and the Endangered Languages Archive. So I said that it is also possible to activate tools from the central infrastructure. And in fact, here I've taken this digitized text.
The project has started with 45 partners, beneficiaries, and linked third parties, and its overall duration is 40 months. So we are already past the equator of the project. So we actually have now, which means that we have not only objectives and goals, but we also have some implementation that we can share, some examples, or we can have more precise vision of what's going to be available in the short time. And there is a project website, which of course has started with information about the project, the high level, but now there is more valuable information that you can find there. So if we can go for the next slide. So this is just to give you an idea of the partners. And I told you that we have started the project, had 45 partners, but over the course of the first 2 years, there were some more partners that brought their expertise or research questions to the table. So we actually have now more partners involved, and well, LIBER is one of the partners, and we cover, I think, all aspects of the field. If we go to the next slide. So that's an overview of the expected impact. So essentially the interaction of across the fields and the representation of the SSH in the EOS is envisaged via the creation, implementation, and of course the usage of the SSH open marketplace. So that's the platform that would encompass so different research infrastructures, and that will make possible the search for different data, tools, and resources, some training material, at the same time across different repositories and different different offers provided by different research infrastructures and their partners. So as to the interesting parts of the website, of the SSHOC website that you can find already and you can use already, it's here. There is a screenshot of the website, and you can see that under the training category, there is the category called training events, and that's the useful link for you, because that's where you can see what kind of events did take place in the past. Like, for example, recently there was a workshop on the data citation, and of course of the training events that will happen in the future. And as it is a best practice these days, all the events are recorded, so the materials can be accessed even if you are getting to know about this project and this information only now. You can connect and see the videos and get more information about what happened in the past. Can I go to the next slide, please? Yes, thank you. So I also did some search on the website to give you an insight on what is there, for example, for librarians. And you can see that you can find some reports and some training material. And on the next slide, we have the more zooming into the training, in the sense that there is the SSH Training Discovery Toolkit. So you can actually look for, search not overall on what is on the website, but specifically on the training materials. And again, if you look for the training material that was mentioning, sorry, I was still, yeah. Thank you, Francesca. So if you look for what is there for librarians, you can see there is a number of training kits and workshops that you can check for more information. Now the next one. So the SSH Open Marketplace it's a discovery portal, and it's three main concepts that we focus in and we invest our time in, is the contextualization, the curation, and the community, so that we are trying to engage with all communities and see what is valuable for them, what is needed for them, so that we curate the data that and resources and tools that are useful for their work. And there is a beta version now, so you can already browse through. And there are a few screenshots on the following up slides with what you can find there. So there is some training material that can be found. And also the next slide, there are also the workflows. So while the training material is more of, well, there are some modules and there is some toolkits, but the workflows is something that we envisage could help the researchers to get an example, to see how the other researchers have used certain tools, or how they looked at certain research questions and how they reformulated those research questions from the general question to some precise steps of what has to be done, actually, how the data has to be processed. And those workflows or the pipelines are on the website. So here there's a screenshot of my search for the TI related workflows. And of course, as I said, we are populating the marketplace, so there will be more material, but that's to give you an idea what is there to find. And the next slide. So now, Francesca, is for you.
Yes. So just a very quick introduction into the scenario that we have chosen for today's workshop, webinar, which is linked to drama or theatrical plays. So in this slide, of course, you see on the right hand, it's English and French edition of the works of Molière. And here I've just put two among the many researchers that are linked to one specific question, that is to say, the study of theatrical characterization, or more simply said, how is it that playwrights create characters that become memorable, that are actually distinctive? How do they give them a voice? And one way to address this question has been also to utilize technologies that come from computational linguistics or digital literary studies, that is to say, to analyze, process the text. And for instance, here I've cited my own work, but also work from colleagues such as Joanna Galeron, etc. So how does these types of research, they start all from one place? That is to say, you need quality digital sources, and they need to be, if possible, richly encoded, because you need to have metadata at text level, so to know about the author, the publication, maybe the list of characters that are included, and also you need annotation at sentence level, so to say, at least. That is to say, you should be able to identify the lines that are from one character to the other. So why? Because then when you have this, you can create separate subcorpora for each character. And not only that, so you can, for instance, study one character with respect to all the others, but maybe you can also start asking questions about the certain characters, certain typologies of characters with respect to others, for instance, the servants versus the masters, the women or the men, etc. So once you have this, what you can then do is to use these computational tools to explore, enrich, analyze these texts, and then maybe let some patterns and some motives emerge that are characterizing certain characters with respect to others. Now, what can librarians do, and how can infrastructures help them in this, knowing that sometimes not all researchers have all the technical knowledge that is necessary to carry out themselves these operations. And this is what we're trying to show you. So we will, first of all, show you what tools are out there to look for texts that are already digitized. And I've already talked about the CLARIN DLO. And here, for instance, I have searched for Hamlet and found two instances of this digital versions of this text, which are actually available here. You can see with rich metadata in digital format. And they are actually offered by one of the CLARIN centers, that is to say the Oxford Text Archive. And what you can do actually here is, as I said, also to process them with the switchboard. So you can take this text and you can see what tools are out there to process it. So you can linguistically analyze this text. This would allow you, for instance, to ask questions such as how many adjectives or how many verbs are used in certain places with respect to others, etc. Or, as I said before, you can also explore, use tools to explore the texts visually. However, things are not always as smooth as they could be. And this is an example. So if you take this text and you do the same steps that I have done, shown you from the slides, you will end up with the fact that this Hamlet text contains a lot of ham. Why? Because in fact, one of the most cited words is ham, because if you take a look at the concordance list here, you will see that there is actually some encoding of sort here that is used to showcase that certain lines are by Hamlet. And this is not detected by Voyant, which is the tool that I use to analyze it. That is to say that tools and resources should be able to work together, so they should be compatible, and in particular, the encoding that is used in the text should be compatible with what the tools offer. So input format matters, and you need to be able to avail yourself of it. And this is what brings us to the issue of TEI, which Maria will discuss right now.
Okay, thank you. So we don't talk much about food, but the actual the encoding, text encoding initiative. So again, we point to the fact that there are some SHOC workflows already on the marketplace where you can see how you can create a TEI-based corpus. And can I go to the next slide? yeah, then we also find the material in the VLO, as Francesco was saying. So we look for the material that is relevant for us, and we check whether the metadata is available there. But it's not only VLO, there are also other sources that you can find via VLO, but also some other archives. I think we have it on the next slide when there is, for example, this drama corpora, and there are those are the already annotated, properly annotated with TI details. Corpora in many languages, so that you can point the researchers for if they want to look into some particular language and some drama corpora in particular language, and you can see what's the overview of the material that is available. And of course, there are much more places like Observatoire de la vie littéraire. Well, its sources are multiple, but essentially we get to the TI index document itself. And on the next slide, yeah, we have also, well, that's once again, we are pointing to the relevant publications that can be also found via, for example, SSHOC Marketplace. We have this type of information there. And then on the next slide, yeah, so that's the website that those of you who are familiar with TI have probably seen it, and if not, that's a very useful website to go to if you want to get more insights into all the details of structure of the development of this initiative. And I would say that the most interesting material is in this middle column, the text body. So that's where there are all kinds of descriptions of what the TI infrastructure is, of like what is in the files and what type of what type of metadata you can expect or to be in the files, or what you could be looking for, and if you are creating the corpora, what kind of encoding you want to or you can make into the files you're working with. And to give you a bit of an idea how the files are looking like, so the default structure of the TI file, it would have a header and then the material of the text itself, and there can be more than one body of text if there are different sections in the file. And this encoding also reminds a lot to the HTML pages that I think everybody has seen once in a while, that you have the header with the information about where the information is coming from, and then the actual information of the file. On the next slide, we have this minimal recommended header. So that's the bare minimum of the information that you would expect to see. It's at least, of course, the title and who did compile this text, what was the name of the person, and then where this publication comes from. So some bibliographic references. So that's the so if you have access to a file, that's information to check if you want to see more details about the file that you have at hand. And in terms of the body of the text, you can, just to highlight what kind of interesting indication that there can be once the corpora text is well annotated. So for example, you can have names, dates, people, places. So you can see that there is a sentence about the David Paul Brown and what has happened to him, and then there is a text and saying that that's a name and it's a person and it's a politician that plays a role, or otherwise the names can be the names of the place and the relevant abbreviations, like in the case of the Citron in France. And of course the dates also can be marked. And also there can be a combination of the text, like a place name. So it's not only a location, but it's also a location and some period in time. So it's the details of this text can be, so the text can be very detailed, and once you have checked what kind of text you have in the text, you can think about how to process them automatically on the large scale using some scripts. Okay, and the next one. So to get more information about the TI itself, as I said, so there are these TI guidelines, the website that screenshot that we had early on, and then there are also tutorials from that I teach, and there are full trading modules that you can follow to get like deep dive impression. And you can also have some video, the introduction, say on YouTube. So that's the type of material that can be helpful to get more insights and more detailed information. So I think we are now at the first moment of opening up the floor and checking the chat whether you had some questions, but I think
yes,
we didn't have.
Yeah. No, I don't see any questions in the chat. Please feel free to unmute yourself and ask your questions. No questions? Everything has been clear so far?
Or everybody has gone to use the links that we have provided and is exploring what the language observatory has, because it has quite so many facets.
All clear, thank you.
Okay.
It is very clear. Yes, thank you for confirming.
Maybe we can ask a question ourselves. It would be interesting to know how many, I mean, many of you will work probably and will have digital libraries in their institutions. And I would be curious to know how many of you are hosting the TEI collections.
Or how many of you are aware that you are hosting those collections? Or maybe another question would be if there are, okay.
You have one answer. I know that we do at the University of Cambridge, but I personally don't work in that area, says Nyamf Tumelti.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, we will check this out then.
Okay. Yeah, and I was thinking about another question. How often does it happen that the researchers come to you with those questions or with the data, or if they stumble upon this data and have questions about how to use it? So if that happened. Well, if it hasn't happened so far, we hope that there will be more often.
Yes, Elisa from the University of from VU Amsterdam says that we have an active group of linguists, so I'm expecting those questions soon. And Charlotte says that we do at the library as well, but again, I do not work in that area. Yes, thank you. And then at Münster, Germany, we host an online edition of the works of Jonathan Swift, and Viola has shared a link in the chat with everybody. And please feel free to unmute yourself, because otherwise it's so quiet. Any other questions, Francesca Maria, for the audience? If not, then, oh yes, we have another comment from Viola. The Swift project team has given an introduction to TI to us at the library. And Orna Roche She says that at University College Dublin, digital library, we have some TI, such as the letters of Nano Nagle. And she shares the link.
Yeah, letters are also, I mean, today we are talking about the standard TI encoding of plays, but the letters are also a jar that requires a lot of encoding in terms of TI, but then it allows a lot of interesting things. For instance, because it's encoding in a very clear, standardized way. For instance, the recipient, the writer. There are a lot of projects that are based on TI and that create, for instance, networks of correspondences. And you can see there, this is a jar that allows you to see the power of highly encoded texts, as well as the example that we are providing today.
Any other questions, remarks? Otherwise, do we proceed with the coffee break, Maria? Francesca?
I think
yes.
we can all get some
okay,
coffee.
so I suggest we have 5 minutes break. It's actually 10 minutes before. So 2:30, Maria?
Yes. That's
yes.
Good.
Okay. Let's start at 2:30.
Okay. Then see you in a few minutes.
Yes.
Okay. All prints. Yeah. No. Okay. Thanks. See you in a few minutes.
(2:30) on my clock. Do we have? Oh, wait a second. Okay. Do we have the audience back from the break? As I'm sharing the screen, oh, wait a second. I think I can. Yeah. Okay. Wonderful. So we continue now with an example that we are working with our partners at the University of Göttingen and at the CLARIN Lean node at the Charles University of Prague. So this is the use case that we work with within the SSHOC project, and that's with this following slides, we would like to give you an idea of what kind of workflows there are, in a sense that the researchers, they start with some questions and then they find the text that are encoded in TI, and then what they can do. And would like the technical skills. I mean, of course, it's the more tech savvy you are, the better, but it can be also you are well supported with such tools as the workflows, because most of the scripts are already prepared for you. And first of all, you can simply run the scripts on the data that you have if you want to see some, if you want to fulfill the same task. Or further on, you can look into, okay, maybe you need to edit something, but that is easier to start with having an example at hand. So the example that we are, sorry, yeah, bit of the drama, how the slides are jumping. So the example that we are working with, it's the intertextuality phenomenon in European drama history. And to give you some context, well, what we are looking at and why. In the 16th, 17th century, and those were the times of the most productive times in the history of theater. And productivity means that there were large bodies of text that were written in different languages, and that means that there is a lot of material that researchers can look into, and this material is in different languages. And what is there? As an example, what could be interesting is, like, for example, if we look at the certain characters and the type of the characters, like for example, the servants or versus the masters. Why is it interesting? Because the representative of certain class, so those characters were used and not only to just be part of the play, but they had the function to unveil certain order of discourse, and they would incorporate certain wisdom of the time that is interesting for the researchers to look into. And you can do comparative literary analysis and you can analyze the literary language of individual dramas of respective historical language level and respective periods of time and in respective countries, and you can compare how certain things, certain wisdoms were expressed in one country versus another, in one language versus another. Of course, that's the researcher context, so that's what the scholars have in mind, but what is actually what they're confronted with, what kind of challenges they have when they start this work. Of course, it's the volume of the material, because you can work with one or two plays and do some manual analysis, but it's not feasible to do manually the analysis of large-scale corpora, and it's more interesting. It gives you more insights when you have such an overview of and more context. Also, you have to work with multiple languages that this corpora contain, and also the annotations are well, sometimes present, sometimes it's not fully annotated. So you want to work with the encoded text that would have as much of those details. And when the researcher starts, the SSH scholars start with, to work with this data, they have to reformulate this research question into more digital humanities, so it's more of the digital aspects and context. So that this question can be seen as okay, so can those relationships between the characters be somehow quantitatively recorded and discerned from the material, and whether those there are some recurring patterns that can be seen and that can be detected using the tools. And okay, yeah, so what we work with in our task is the three languages, as I already said. So we look at the dramas from Shakespeare Library in English, the Théâtre Classique by Paul Thièvre in French, and the dramas from Pedro Calderón de la Barca in Spanish. And the material that can be found via different sources, so via Vielo, or we were also pointing to this Dracor repository. So we take those plays, different materials, and of course they're not only the materials in different languages, but the encoding sometimes is different. So what we experienced once we found all the material that we work with and downloaded it, that there's inconsistency of available formats. So what you might experience that there is a TI XML, but it's not valid against the schema. So you have to either look into the files and fix the encoding, or you need to discard this part of the corpora as something that you would not work with. Sometimes it is encoded with proprietary formats, so you need to check whether that's something, as Francesca was giving an example of the ham, so that's if it's persistent to the whole corpora and you can easily clean the corpora, or whether that's something that you have to keep in mind. And also some parts of material could be available only as plain text, but then of course for the TI processing of the large scale, you need to either process, so either prepare the encoding for those files, or discard it for the moment. So we, in order to normalize the corpora that we're working with, we did some cleanup, and there are different Python scripts just to clean up those different parts of the corpus. And of course, we also itemize the parts that can be taken into experience and not due to the encoding issues. So what's the first step that we need to do before processing the text? So the idea is that we have the dramas, like for example, here it's the beginning of the Midsummer Night's Dream, and in the drama you have different characters talking to each other, and this is annotated as different entries. But if you want to look into the language that is used by a particular character, we need to have a file or one place where all the speeches by this character are stored and not and there is no interruption by the other characters. So essentially, we want to have for this one file on the left, we want to have a number of files with each character's material, because afterwards we can say upload this text file to something like Voyant to see some statistics over the text and visualize the keywords, etc. And in order to do that, so we start, as I said, with the text that is, so the encoded files. And here you can see an example of actual TI encoded file, because in the previous slides we had some minimum information and just an examples, but it's a very long file. But here you can see the header with the title and the authors of the information about encoding, and then down the in the file. Sorry for the jumping. I have to be very careful with the strokes. We can see the speech of the character, but you can see that each word is having its own set of text. So what we do is that we need to go through the workflow of processing the corpus of these TI files and with the goal to have the set of individual text for each character. So we go through a number of steps. And here I give you an example of the workflow, as I was saying. So that is written in a quite technical way, because of course you need to know which terminal command to run or what to do with the file. But at the same time, I want to get you to understand that the actual work is done by the script, so it's not it should not be scary neither for the researchers nor for any librarian to point the researchers to this kind of workflows. So when we start, so as the first step, so we need to count the number of these persons that are in the list of persons in the each drama and store this result in some plain text file. And for that, you can run a comment in the terminal. And in the workflow, such comment is provided. So what I'm showing here is the actual material that you find when you say go on the marketplace and look for this workflow. And so you get, as a first step, you have this number of the characters in each drama counted. And then you need to do, like as a second step, something quite simple that doesn't really require you even using the terminal, because if you need to move two files from one directory to another, you can also do that easily. Just using any of the tools on your machine. And then because the scripts are written in Python, so you need to turn on the virtual Python environment, so that you need to check this on your machine. And there are instructions for, say, if you run it on Windows machine, or if you need to do that by the terminal. And then the actual work, so the actual so the actual extraction of information of those texts that are associated with different characters is done via running one comment that is written in the workflow, and so that you can simply copy paste. And essentially that script is written in the way that it does take the files and create for every drama a subdirectory which has each individual files with the characters speeches in it. So essentially that is done quite quickly, and thanks to the TI information in the corpora, you have this all properly, so you can extract this information and you can then properly store it. So the task is fulfilled, but in the workflow, that's not the last step, because of course the researchers that develop so that work with the data, they know what is in the data, they check it, but the idea is that when the workflow is shared with the other researchers, there's also information on how to test whether when you have run the script or the set of steps on your machine with your data, whether you actually received, so whether you have got the exact result that you were expecting to get to. And for that, there are a few more steps, so that you need to actually count the number of the single files in every directory and store it in a separate file. And again, of course, you don't do it by hand, so you don't go to each folder and check. So there is one line of that you can write in the terminal, and this information will be stored. And you need to say restructure every entry in a slightly different way, again by using the script as like step 7. So you need to run the script, and that will do the restructuring of the file for you. And then some polishing of these files has to happen, because when the script is run, the paths to the files that you are creating that are on your machine, that are saved in the files that you're working with, so those paths need to be removed. But again, that happens as you run the specially created script for that. And so essentially you run you go through the steps of moving the information from one table to another, running the script, and that gives you the statistics of the files that you have created, about the characters in every file, about the number of the characters in the play, and as the one of the last steps, so you have to create the file where you will have the information, the output of this preparatory steps. And the last script to run is the checkup script. So the script that is needed to check whether what you have done on your machine with your data, whether it has provided the results that you were looking at. So the script gives you a number of errors, if there are any. I mean, of course, you hope not to have any, but if something was wrong with the files in the beginning, that could, of course, cause the issues. And the information is structured in the output file that gives you any details of the errors. And essentially, once you do this checkup on your machine, you know that, okay, you've gone through the workflow that was prepared by the other researchers, and then you've received, so you've got to the set of files that you were envisaging to have, and then you can follow up by processing, say, this text with other tools that are suitable for further text analysis that you have for the research questions. So essentially, if we want to summarize those steps that need to be taken by an SSH researcher, is that first you need to get the annotated data, which you do via one of the aggregators that are available. So it can be VLO, it can be, if you look for more of the language data, and but if in the task and the research question, I mean, here we were talking about drama corpus, but you might have you might talk to the researcher who has more of the social sciences context. So then the search on the SSH Open Marketplace could be giving you broader context and broader potential sources of information. So you download these material from the original source, so you get the data collection. Then you can find the workflows with scripts, processing examples, and the compatible tools. This can be done via SSH Open Marketplace, and you will have the workflows written in details, as I was showing in the previous slides, where essentially you just need to copy certain things and move the files, and then run the script that is already provided. Or another approach can be that you also finding the compatible tools in the CLARIN language resources switchboard, and so that you can run the processing in the browser and see the results of the analysis. Yeah, essentially that when you have a workflow, this is going to be the offline work, because you follow the instructions provided and you run the scripts on your machine. And the scripts themselves, they can be downloaded, because in the workflow there's reference to the scripts on the GitHub as one of the places where they can be stored. Or if you use language resources switchboard, it can be done online. So now there is another slot for some questions and answer. And as I'm sharing the screen, I'm not really sure how many of, if there's any questions or comments in the audience.
No, there are no questions in the chat. Please feel free to unmute yourself and ask your questions directly.
Yeah, so maybe actually we have a question to you, in a sense that when we think about workflows description coming from the technical side, so we know what to write in terms of which line of code to which to put in the terminal, or which script or environment it should be, but it would be valuable for us to know what kind of descriptions do you like, how more detailed and what would be more user-friendly way to put this such a workflow, so that you think that you'd be more like a librarian would be more comfortable to recommend this workflows usage, or you think that the researchers that you are working with would be more comfortable to also work with afterwards? I mean, if you don't have it, the exact suggestion now, we would be happy to hear anything in the follow-up if you have some thoughts afterwards. That's totally fine as well.
Perhaps one thing from my perspective, I can't really speak for other people, but I was already wondering, like, if you find this workflow and you realize as a researcher that you just want to do something a little bit different than the code that is provided, then how would you find a solution to like tweak to tweak the right part of the code? And I guess for me, it would be interesting to see if there's perhaps some extra training that gives you more explanation about different aspects of a Python code, but perhaps they're already there, I don't know for sure. Or perhaps that you have an environment where you can just zoom over the code and per part of the code it is explained what it is doing or something. That would be my input.
Okay, thanks. Well, I think for these scripts that we are working with, well, we can indicate which section of the code are indeed to be changed if you want to edit. Okay, well, I think we need to talk to the developers.
Maybe I can add the fact that now some technologies within the Python ecosystem are available, for instance, Jupyter notebooks that are doing exactly this, that is to say, they are providing the code, but also there's a possibility to insert text and explanations and to run each part of the code in an interactive separate way. So this is very pedagogical, and it may resemble also in some way to our workflow, or could be used to create workflows. So this is also.
Yeah, so we'll have to explore whether we can add also, say, the Jupyter notebooks to such workflow description of the marketplace.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Any other comments or questions?
Maria, somebody is asking, Elisa from VU Amsterdam, how can researchers contribute to LRS, write a Python code that others can reuse? For example, do they need to be CLARIN members? Maybe Elisa can clarify a question a little bit, because it is possible to deposit language resources, right, Maria?
I'm sorry, I made a mistake in my question. What I was wondering is you referenced all of these Python scripts that researchers can use to encode the language resources. But is it possible for researchers to also contribute to this kind of thing? Because at my university there's quite an active group of language research and linguistics and computational linguistics. And I think many of them probably already are contributing, but I think many of them would like to contribute in a way. Is this possible?
Well, Francesca, did you want to?
First of all, I wanted to say that you can, I mean, something that I haven't said in my presentation, but as I just touched upon the fact that CLARIN is a sort of federation of data centers. So one way to share your data, when we talk about language resources, we also include the code or the tools. So you can share your language resources by depositing them in one of the CLARIN data centers. And this will make them automatically available and searchable to the whole community. Then talking about tools or scripts, for data is, like for instance, corporate is rather simple, but for scripts, what you may want to do is to create maybe a web service around it so that it can be used from a web interface, etc. And in this sense, some at least of the CLARIN centers can also be of use. So if you feel that your researchers have some very powerful, useful tool, scripts that could be turned into a tool, then they can address a CLARIN center. And which CLARIN center to address, I think it depends on, I mean, normally one goes to the CLARIN B centers, so the centers that offer more tools and services within their own national, within their country, so the national center, so to say. I don't know, Maria, if you wanted to add something.
Well, I also wanted to say that for the marketplace, it will be also, well, currently it's not open yet to public, but it will be also possible to add those workflows descriptions. So it will be also possible so that if you store your scripts already in some place, because the marketplace itself is not the storage space, but then you can have this description of how the data was processed and have it in the marketplace. So then it will be also having this visibility.
All right, thanks. That's great. Thanks for your responses.
Welcome. Do we have any other comments or questions? It's much easier when you are in the room and seeing the faces rather than when you're sharing the screen and being in the blind. Okay, well, if you have more questions to the end of the presentation, we of course can have another round of answers. Now we have, okay, now we have the wrap up overview, and we would like to highlight the especially useful references that we already mentioned in the beginning, but also some particular pointers that can help you to get more information on particular aspects that we have talked about. So in terms of, first of all, well, the take-home message that we would like you to have after this session is that, well, collaboration with research infrastructures is valuable for both researchers and librarians who support the researchers. So we are there, we are working for you essentially. So, well, we are open for questions, comments, and we can see what kind of node has enough knowledge and can provide you with the information you need. The tools, resources, services, and various teaching material can be found via such aggregators as well, SSH Open Marketplace, and then for the language tools of researchers in the domain of SSH, the Virtual Language Observatory is the place to start looking for all of those. And we know that some of you have encountered TI before, but we would like to highlight it yet again that it's a powerful annotation scheme for information extraction, and it helps with advanced analysis that you can envisage when working with the data. This is a SSHOC event, and there will be more SSHOC events and workshops in the future as the project is ongoing. So first of all, SSHOC is represented at LIBER. Well, unfortunately, one of the events, one of the presentations has happened before our workshop, but I'm sure since something like in 2 weeks, there will be the recordings of all the materials. So if you are interested, you can listen to the data citation for the humanities and social sciences. Then later this week, tomorrow, there will be a poster giving more details about the marketplace. That's tomorrow at the session between 12:30 and 1. And you can already see the poster content and the video recording of it on the LIBER website. All future SSHOC events are, well, future and past ones are can be found on the website. And we would like to highlight to you that there will be the SSHOC Vocabulary Initiative already on the upcoming Monday at the ICTesh conference. So it's yet another conference that happens in the virtual format. So the registration is open, and that could be an interesting topic for the librarians to listen to. Plus, further in autumn 2021, it's not a precise date yet, but we already know the topics that of the upcoming events. There will be a workshop on data protection and the GDPR, and there will be another webinar on the data citation, so that you can get more information. And then Francesca can give you some more references for the CLARIN research infrastructure.
Yeah, so from the CLARIN side, what you need to take home is, apart from the fact that, of course, there are these services that can be used to search and find resources. The important take-home message is also that there is a network of knowledge centers that can also function as help desks. So do not hesitate to contact the relevant ones or to point researchers into the direction of these knowledge centers. Maybe Juliana can put the link to the knowledge centers page in the chat if she hasn't already. You will see that there is a search function, so you can actually search by topics and find the right one for you. And now other ways to get to know more about CLARIN is to participate in our events. The annual conference is open to all researchers that may submit contributions that are of interest to CLARIN. And we also support in normal times, we support mobility by providing mobility grants for researchers to visit from CLARIN member states to visit centers in different countries, for instance, especially young researchers. They can avail themselves of this possibility now that we will be all fully vaccinated and with whatever pass it's called. Then we can also start hopefully funding again support for workshops, in face-to-face workshops, not just like these ones. And we also have an ambassadors network. There will be new ambassadors nominated soon, so they may also organize something for you, for your communities. And we have training through live events or webinars, not only for actually not only for researchers, but also for developers, maybe data librarians, etc. In particular, you see that we have all these activities on data citation. And I think you know this better than we do. I mean, earlier on, librarians would just recommend books, literature, or first, secondary literature, etc. But nowadays, there's this whole palette of things that researchers use and that they need to cite, data, code, even workflows can be cited. So all these things need to be credited, and how do we cite them properly? And there is a lot of research going on around that, and we need the input of librarians for it. So yeah, check out all our possibilities. They are listed on the CLARIN webpage. Next, yeah, and practically you can subscribe to the news flash. CLARIN news flash, check our past and future events and all the open calls that I've mentioned, and for those that are on Twitter, you can follow us as well. I think that's all. And more specifically, you can check out our CLARIN. So for the time being, while we are waiting for the pandemics to be really over. We have all these virtual events that you're very welcome to. We have CLARIN cafes that are short webinars that you can attend online, and we've recorded them, so you can check out all the past webinars. So coming up also, there's an event that is part of the Upskills Erasmus Plus project. You can ask Juliana if you want to know more about this project. It's called Every Time I Hire a Linguist. And it's actually dedicated to emergent tech profiles for linguists, translators, and language experts. So if you have students that are in applied linguistics, you may want to recommend this webinar to them. In the cafe series, we have a cafe next Monday dedicated to the Parliament project. So we launch 17 corpus of 17 parallel parliamentary corpora that can be accessed and studied in a comparative way. And if you want to know more about how they were created and what you can do with them, this is the opportunity. And then our next conference, also unfortunately, like the previous one, will be held online, but the good side is that we have a lot of attendance because of the online conference. So of course, this is also open to you and to anyone that may be interested. And finally, this is really for you. This is a sneak preview because it's not yet on the website, but you can save the date already. There will be a workshop, CLARIN and libraries, interoperability of text platforms for digital libraries. And you will be able to find more information and the registration form online, but for the time being, you can actually save the date.
Okay, and well, with this, we first would like to thank you for your attention, and once again to ask if you have any questions, and you can well, put them in the chat box or just unmute yourself. And now I think Juliana would send you the post-event survey that we have prepared, and we kindly ask you to fill that in. And of course, for the SSHOC project, there are also Twitter account, the website, the LinkedIn account, so you can follow the information of the workshop development online. So at this point, if you have other questions or comments. If, of course, if you have some questions afterwards, we are happy to answer. You can send the questions to us, and those slides will be available later on, and all the all the links will be there so that you can check everything yourselves. I'll just stop sharing then. And so then we thank you very much for attending this webinar, for being here and listening to us. We are thankful for the comments that you have already provided, so we can check with our colleagues whether they know about the data sets that you already have, and for sure we'll talk with the teams that work on the workflows, how to make them, yeah, this user friendliness, that's our goal, of course.
And of course, if, as has already been said over and over again, if you have any further requests or you want to get in touch with CLARIN for some specific research topics or tools, do not hesitate. Sometimes, I mean, I haven't cited another useful, I think I might just give you one last piece of information. That is the Tour de CLARIN. It is, and there are useful publications to discover not only what the central CLARIN services are, but also what the various national centers offer, because there is so much more than what we have said. So you may also discover that there are interesting services in your own country that may be of interest to you. So this is also a useful reference for you. Thanks also from my part for attending and for all the interesting, useful feedback.
Thank you very much for all the positive feedback in the chat.
Wonderful.
So thanks, everyone. If we're ready, I think we can close this meeting. Many thanks for being attentive, and many thanks to our hosts for having this workshop. And we're looking forward to seeing you in our other LIBER 2021 activities.
And thanks to you, Athena.
Thank you, Athena.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.